Welcome back to the Interior Design Podcast. I'm Hayley Roy, a commercial interior designer with a passion for creating beautiful functional spaces.
And I'm Scarlett Mallet, and I'm an interior designer and project manager here at Harp Design.
Today, we're blending interior design with something completely unexpected. Our guest, welcome,
Hello.
Evan, from Walking With Reptiles, a landscape gardener who's opening a reptile handling centre in Haybridge. Welcome to the Interior Design Podcast, Evan.
Thank you very much for having me.
So let's start at the beginning. You studied animal care. Was the reptile the obsession from day one?
Yeah, so basically, my earliest memories are from when I was a little boy. And I used to, for a little time, live with my grandma and grandpa. My grandma and grandpa one day had Steve Irwin on the TV, and I absolutely loved it. He was like a superhero. Is the best way I can describe Steve Irwin. Seeing what he would do with animals, but not only how he would go and handle these animals, but he was constantly enthusiastic about them and constantly, he could talk to you about saltwater crocodiles for 20 minutes and you would come away being like, saltwater crocodiles are the most amazing animals on the planet. And it kind of rubbed off because crocodiles, or crocodilians, I should say, are my absolute favorite animals. I could talk about them all day long. But it got to a point where I was so excited to watch Steve Irwin that my grandma, I remember sitting on her kitchen or at the kitchen table, she had a timer, a little egg timer, and she would literally say, once that timer goes off, you can go in the North Wing and you can watch Steve Irwin. So that's what I used to do. So that was how I got into it. And my passion sort of just grew from there. And I love crocodiles. Every time we went on holiday or went anywhere, it's like, I've got to find crocodiles, got to find crocodiles. And then it sort of developed from there, learning about not just crocodiles, but different animals as well, and then growing into reptiles. And it got to a point where when I was younger, I think I was in the Cubs at the time, we were at an event and this man had a corn snake. Now, at the time, I was absolutely terrified of snakes. Wouldn't want to go near them. I was really nervous of them. And yet my dad kind of encouraged me to handle this corn snake, and it was fantastic. And I literally spent the whole day going around being like, I love this corn snake. I want a pet snake. Obviously, that didn't happen for a couple of years. But as I sort of got older and learned, I kept reading up on reptiles and learning. I was like, Dad, can I have a pet snake? Dad, can I have a pet snake? And eventually I wore him down. He said, all right, fine, you can have a pet snake. So we had a car boot sale we sold all sorts of things at this car boot sale. So we could raise the money to buy Razor, who was my first pet snake, who was a royal python. Or if you live in America, they call them ball pythons. But the reason for that, they've got two names. The ball python is because when they're scared and feel threatened, they curl up into a ball to defend themselves. But with royal pythons, where they're found all throughout Africa and several different countries, a lot of tribes actually do worship them. So some of the tribes would actually wear the snakes around their body as to sort of show their value. So that's where they get the name royal python from. So but I had Razor for a little while, and then the collection just grew and grew and grew. And now we've got to the point where we're sort of getting ready to open our animal handling centre in Haybridge, where people will be able to come. They'll be able to get hands on with all sorts of different snakes, lizards, tortoises. They'll be able to learn. They'll be able to get photos. The purpose for it is to really encourage young children to come and get hands on with animals. You can go to a zoo, and some zoos do have hands-on experiences. I completely agree. I'm not trying to slate off zoos or anything like that. But you can go to a zoo and you can go and you can view an animal through glass, but you can't get hands-on with it. But with what I'm offering, and this is something that, again, going back to Steve Irwin, with one of the things he was like, you could do a documentary and you could be looking at wildlife all the way over there and talking about it, or you could come with Steve Irwin and you get up close and personal with some really, like, one of my favorites was when he went to Africa and he saw a herd of African elephants, and he's literally sitting with a thunderstorm right behind him, and there's this herd of African elephants in front of him, and he's just saying, like, we're on the continent of Africa, the largest land animal on the planet, and you see him and he's in awe. And that's fascinating to me. And I feel that people learn a lot more with hands-on handling as well.
Totally.
So that's why I wanted to open the facility, not only because reptiles are my passion, but so other people can learn and get hands-on and even potentially go down the route of keeping animals or reptiles themselves.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah. So previously you worked at Swallow Aquatic.
Yep.
What did they teach you about the environments that the reptiles should be in?
So it was actually a really good thing working at Swallow Aquatics because when I went there, I was only interested in reptiles, but as I sort of started working there, and they mainly at the time were dealing with fish, I learned about aquariums, how to set aquariums up, and how aquariums are like this whole environment that you've got to set up, and all the different ways you can set them up to have different features in them, especially when it comes to keeping live plants as well, and how an aquarium can be a really important part in the home. And at one point, me and my dad, I think we had like 5 fish tanks on the go in our house. So, yeah, we got a bit obsessed with it.
Dad sounds really cool.
Oh, my dad's the best person in the world. He's my hero, without a doubt. He's also a bit of a hippie, is the best way I'd describe him. But at Swallow Aquatics, I was there for about 2 or 3 years, and then one of the guys who was the livestock manager at the time started getting into poison dart frogs. Now, poison dart frogs, everyone immediately thinks, "Oh my God, you can't keep them because they're poisonous; they're going to kill you." In the wild, poison dart frogs will eat venomous insect, or I say venomous, poisonous insects, and they excrete the poison through their skin. In captivity, we feed them on things like fruit flies, which aren't poisonous at all. So they don't actually excrete any poison through their skin. So if it's a captive bred dart frog, you're absolutely fine. But you can actually do more harm to them if you touch them with your bare skin, because they absorb everything through their skin.
Wow.
So we always had to wear gloves when handling them. But anyway, the manager started getting into dart frogs, and we had all these different frogs, and he started building bioactive vivariums. Now, a bioactive vivarium essentially is a living rainforest in your front room. So it includes a drainage layer so that the water from the environment has somewhere to go to.
Yeah.
It has a sort of a barrier to separate that drainage layer from your substrate. And then your substrate will consist of a mixture of soil, moss, bark, all sorts of different things that would be found on the rainforest floor. That would be then the environment for your plants to grow in. You can then have rocks, you can have different pieces of wood. Cork bark is a really great piece of wood to use in vivariums. I love it personally because you can snap it really easily, and like you can mold it into the shapes that you want for the enclosure. And you can also use driftwood as well. So all these different things that you can use, you can grow different plants on them. You can grow all sorts of different mosses. You can really build a fantastic environment for your animals to live in. And it's so rewarding setting up these beautiful enclosures and then seeing, wow, like look at this incredible animal in this enclosure. But it doesn't necessarily have to be for dart frogs. It could be for geckos. It could be for snakes. There's a real large variety of animals that can be kept in bioactive enclosures. It can even go as far as desert animals as well. So you can set up bioactive vivariums for desert dwelling animals. Obviously, it'd be a different setup in terms of the environment, temperature wise, and obviously the substrates you use, but you can still go down that route of having live plants in that sort of environment. So there's loads of really cool aspects to it. And you can create some stunning enclosures. And especially if someone comes into your house, they'll go, "Oh, what have you got in there?" Because they just see this amazing glowing rainforest. And yeah, that's one of the things I love about keeping reptiles, is not only having the animals for people to come and handle and learn about, but also creating these environments. And I think that's where my background as a landscaper has helped out so much, because the skills I've been able to learn as a landscaper have helped me to improve building the enclosures for my animals.
Well, that's brilliant.
What
Everything
skill-
aligns, doesn't it?
Yeah. And what skills are them that you have learned?
So when I first started, it was 2018, end of 2018. And initially you're just learning basic skills like, where to put materials, where to unload, how to mix up cement, all that stuff. But the company I worked for, and I was always really grateful they gave me the opportunity, specialized in bespoke gardens. And they would design the gardens with all sorts of different things in, but you would always have these very, very specific details. So it would be things like having the copings going around like a garden wall or something like that. So you would learn how to not only lay slabs or lay copings, but also we would use an outside material called multi-slate. So I learned how to use multi-slate and how to install that on a wall. So you get a piece of it, you get a tile adhesive, you mix that tile adhesive up in a bucket, and then you basically coat it onto the wall, back of the outside tile, the multi-slate, that slots onto the wall, and it builds this really beautiful living wall with all these different shapes and sort of shades of grey in them as well. And on numerous occasions, I used to take that multi-slate that we would get, and then I would actually put it on the back of the vivariums that I used to build. So the animals had like a natural background, but also it looked like they were in like a Peruvian temple, for example, where you had all this slate and, things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, but landscaping has also taught me, uh ground working skills. So when you're setting stuff out, what's height is everything going to be at, where's the water going to go, all these things you have to consider when building a garden. But also carpentry, being able to build wooden structures, pergolas, all these things that at the time, whilst you're building this wooden structure, you're thinking, oh yeah, this and this. But then when I've come to build all the enclosures for the reptile facility, all of the enclosures, we've gone, oh, okay, yeah, I know how to do this because we built this before when we were building pergola. So it all ties in quite nicely, especially when building the enclosures, because you know what materials you can use that are going to be safe for the animals, but you also know what you can't use. You don't want to be using, for example, to build the walls of the enclosure, chipboard, because chipboard, it doesn't hold up to humidity too well, and it can peel off and the animals could injure themselves on it. So, things like that.
So, Evan, at what point did you say, I'm going to open my own reptile centre one day?
So that actually came 2011, I think. My mum randomly phoned me up one day saying, Evan, you need to get on BBC iPlayer, or I think it was Channel 5 iPlayer, something along them lines. You need to watch this series about crocodiles. Anytime anything about crocodiles came on, mum and dad were straight away like, you need to watch this. I'm like, yeah, no problem. And it was about a guy called Sean Foggett who opened quite successfully the UK's first crocodile zoo, which is called Crocodiles of the World. It's in Oxfordshire. Brilliant zoo. Cannot praise it enough. They've got such an amazing selection, not just of crocodiles, but different reptiles, and they've got mammals as well. So they've got little things like otters. I'm probably going to butcher the name here, but a binturong, which is like a large mammal, probably like just a little bit bigger than like a badger or something like that. They're beautiful animals. So yeah, they have all these different things there. And the series was about him moving his 23 crocodiles that he had, or 23 crocodiles and alligators he had in his sheds, to his crocodile facility that he built. And I remember watching him do it. And I'd always said, oh, I want to work with animals, I want to work with animals. And then seeing him do it was like, I want to do that. And then I immediately went into, started drawing up ideas for enclosures and drawing up ideas for, how to set out a building and things like that. And then my dad would always come and say, oh, well, have you considered this? And have you considered that? So that was sort of where it all came from.
How old were you when you were doing all this?
So I'd have been about 11 or 12.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So,
Really?
yeah.
Oh my God. So you've been dreaming about it for a long time.
Long
And
time.
how old, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you now?
I'm going to be 27 next month.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, literally, everyone I talk to, even when I was at college, they'll go, oh, what part of the animal industry do you want to work with? And I'll go, oh, I want to open my own reptile zoo. And they turn around to me and be like, right, okay. We've never heard someone say that before. And it had happened on numerous occasions. So yeah, it's been in the works for a very, very long time. But I finally got to the point where it was kind of like, if I don't do this now, it's never going to happen. So I'm going to just jump on it. And, that's kind of where we got to where we are now. It's hard. It's, getting everything up and running, and especially getting our animal activities license. There's so many different things that go into it. I'm so grateful that I've had the support of my girlfriend, my dad, all the other aspects of my, friends and family have helped me to get the facility going, whether that's designing enclosures, building enclosures, or, just looking after the animals. And I must say, my girlfriend has helped me so much with all of the paperwork. There's so much paperwork, which is my enemy. I'm terrible at paperwork. So every time we had to do stuff, I'd just roughly write it up, and then she'd go, right, okay, and then she'd like speed it and then write it up properly, because she'd be like, yeah, you've got about 10 or 12 spelling mistakes in here. I'm like, yeah, I know I can't spell. So
ChatGPT is your best friend, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's why it was invented.
Absolutely. It does come in handy.
Admin.
So a quick question that I have is, what overlaps do you see between landscaping and interior design?
I think there's a lot of things. It's always when you're setting up a garden, whenever I go and look at a garden for a customer, it's always taking into account what's the area you're working in, what materials are you going to use, how are you going to set things out, and most importantly, what is the customer looking to get? Because I could go and look at someone's garden and they will say to me, oh, this is our garden. We're not really sure what we want. We're hoping you could give us some ideas. And my response to that every time is, well, what are you looking to gain out of this? Are you looking to have a large area where you can entertain people? Are you looking to have, areas where you can quite quietly sit and read a book and relax? Or are you looking to have like an area for children to play? And that's always the most important thing. And I think you would agree with me with interior design. That's a similar sort of basis you go with your clients as well.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the main similarities. But you could also look at how are you going to set the material.
It's choosing certain materials as well.
Yeah,
It's very similar for you, like how you said earlier about the what was it? The
multi-slate.
Multi-slate. Yeah.
So it's kind of a case of, you've got this area in the garden that's doesn't get much sun, but it's still quite a nice little area that can be used. You think, oh, okay, well, what we could do, we could look at building a flower bed in that part of the garden. We could look at what plants would benefit in that area with low light, but would still thrive. And then we could look at creating a nice colourful part of the garden that's still a nice feature, but it's still utilizing the space at the same time. And that way, there's things like that I always look at. One customer I went and looked at not too long ago, I sort of said to them, like, would you like to have big family gatherings and things like that? And they went, oh, yeah, we love to. I said, well, why don't we, rather than having the patio kind of went like an L shape. I said, why don't we extend it out another 2 meters? And then that way you've got area so you can have a table, you can have a barbecue, and that will give people extra space to walk around. So you've got this great entertaining area. And then you can also look at different garden furniture as well and all sorts of different things like that. And, we talked about all these different ideas and they thought, oh, yeah, that's a really,
It's about fitting it around people's lives, isn't it? It's about when you do interior design, you have to make it flow and you have to really consider how people live.
Absolutely.
When you're doing homes and if you're doing commercial, you where people move in a space or whatever. I think that's a real connection, isn't it?
It's like what you just said about how, for instance, if people like to do a lot of barbecues and be in the garden a lot in the summer, you want to maybe take that and then enhance it by having, for instance, like a barbecue area, like you said.
Yeah,
make people's lives better, don't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Lovely.
I mean, there's some really some of the stuff we've built some really cool custom barbecues where it will have like a granite worktop, and then you'll have like a fridge built into it. We've built like an actual barbecue unit into it, a sink, all these different features we've built into people's gardens, and they absolutely love it. And then we actually used the multi-slate. It wasn't grey, it was like a lighter, more beige colour multi-slate, but it still looked absolutely fantastic when it was all finished. That was when I worked for another company a few years ago. But yeah, like some of the things that you can do to utilize a space and bring the best out in that area are absolutely incredible.
So what natural materials do you love using in outdoor projects that translate well into jungle style interiors?
There's a couple of different things that you can use depending on the animals. So I'd say going back to what I was saying earlier with the multi-slate, that works fantastically because it gives you a fantastic background. The nice thing as well about that is it absorbs the heat well. So if you're keeping things like geckos, for example, they will love that because they can sit on the heat and they, because it's absorbed the heat, they will sit there quite nicely. So at night, when you turn all the lights off, they've still got somewhere warm to sit and sort of still not necessarily bask, but keep themselves warm. A material that I've used in a lot of the enclosures is a lot of natural rocks. So when we're doing gardens, you get some people have like they like to have rockeries or something like that for various different reasons. I mean, for example, my nan used to have a rockery in her garden with all these different lavender plants growing out of it.
Lavender.
And it was lovely. So not only was it something you could look at visually, it was really really smart.
Lovely,
but yeah,
it?
the scent smell was beautiful. So you could walk past that and it was brilliant. But I've used a lot of different types of stones in the enclosures, so the animals have got areas to bask, but also so it visually makes the enclosures look nicer as well. So I think that's one of the other things that I've been able to utilize is using all these different natural materials in the enclosures. Obviously, when you use the materials, we always have to make sure we sterilize them because the last thing we want to do is bring something from outside in, and that could cause ill health to the animals. So we always have to sterilize them, which generally we do by cleaning them off with like a cleaning product. And then once we've done that, we boil them in hot water, basically to get rid of any nasty bacteria or anything like that. Let them dry out, and you're good to go and use them in the enclosure.
Amazing. I'd like to ask you about Steve Irwin
Yep.
because I grew up watching Steve Irwin, and then he died, didn't he?
Of course.
What's your opinion about all of that? Like, I mean, I remember he got killed by a stingray, didn't he?
Yeah.
And like he spent all that time with crocodiles for years and years and years, and then a bloody stingray.
I know. I think, yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, I still remember where I was when I found out he died, and it's at the time I was really sad about it. But I think the important thing to remember about him is he went out of his way to. I mean, he put himself in so many dangerous situations. There's a footage where he went to Komodo Island and he was getting chased by a Komodo dragon.
I bet that was funny.
Yeah,
In that.
yeah, and I mean, some of the stuff that's fascinating to me is you watch the behind the scenes of what he does with, setting up the filming for the animals. One of them is they were working with a spitting cobra, and they needed the cobra to face the camera. So what they did is they put a set of eyes on the front of the camera, and they were then trying to get the cobra to like lunge at the camera at the same time. But because the eyes were so big, it was felt threatened, so it was spitting at the cameraman. So it was interesting just seeing how much he went out of his way to not only keep the team that was filming everything safe, but also to highlight the animal and show what an incredible animal it was. I think one of my favorite documentaries I watched that they did, he had a film called The Crocodile Hunter Collision Course, and they used, I think, about 4 or 5 of the crocodiles in the zoo in that film, and they just cut them all together in different scenes. But one of the things is he has I don't know if the animal's still alive, I assume that it is, a 15-foot saltwater crocodile called Agro, which is a crocodile Steve Irwin caught straight out of the wild. And Agro they wanted him for the camera because of how aggressive he is, and he comes out of the water, and look, from a visual perspective, that's incredible to see in a film. But as soon as he went into the enclosure on a boat that he used, Agro started acting up, simply because of the fact that when Steve Irwin caught him out of the wild, that was the boat that he used to catch him out, and it reminded him of the animal's capture. So he was always putting the animal's welfare at, as a priority as well. So I think they changed Agro over to a crocodile they had called Charlie, and in the film there's a scene where the crocodile jumps up the side of the boat, and he's trying to get a rope on it, and that's their crocodile Charlie. And so it's really incredible, what they could do to not only bring these animals to your screen, but also do it with the animals' welfare as well. So I think, rounding back up, because I can ramble about Steve Irwin. I think it was the thing that Steve Irwin should always be remembered for is the fact that he went out of his way to highlight these not only unusual but dangerous animals, but he always did it with the animals' welfare at heart as well. And there's numerous instances. I know that he broke his ribs, he broke his fingers. He had numerous injuries leading up before he died, and he kept going on and going on. And there's interviews as his wife saying, they'd have conversations about stuff, and he goes, "Oh, I've got to get this done. I've got to get this done because of this, and I want to bring this conservation project up." And his wife would always be like, "Don't talk like that. You're talking like you're going to die someday, unfortunately." But that's one of them things. But I think that that's one of the great things to see, is that he still lives on, especially seeing what his son and daughter are doing now. So my girlfriend absolutely loves Robert Irwin. Especially with him on Dancing with the Stars recently. That was great to see. She was like, "Oh, he's won." I'm like, "Has he?" So yeah, but no, like I say, with Steve Irwin, I think it was simply because of the fact he was able to bring so much to the screen and educate everyone so well. That's what's really that's what I always remember him for.
He's so animated.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what I was going to say, is that something that was amazing is that he did go out of his way to actually educate people on what animals there are and what their needs are, and that actually can be translated into helping someone if they wanted to obviously habitat one about what substances to use, what makes them feel calm, what makes them feel not threatened. Is that you've learned that without even realizing, and that's what's really amazing, obviously, that you've obviously learned about the work that you do as well, is you've learned that without unknowingly knowing.
Yeah,
Basically.
I think you definitely do learn the more you go along. Like, even now, there's still things I'm doing. I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know that 6 months ago, but I'm glad I know it now. And I've got so many friends in the reptile industry who they'll say to me, oh, you should do this. This is actually going to be beneficial. I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. Thank you for telling me. And
Every
that,
day's a school day.
oh, absolutely. So yeah, that's another great thing about keeping animals is you're forever learning and you can forever improve upon their care. So that's always a great aspect as well.
So, Evan, tell us about the reptile centre you're opening in Haybridge.
So,
What's the vision?
Walking with Reptiles, I mean, going back to what I was saying earlier, I've always wanted to open my own reptile zoo. How Walking with Reptiles came about, I was part of Essex Young Farmers for a very long time, still am, but just not so much. I'm one of the old ones now. So I go along and I'm like, oh, I think I'm a bit old for this now, but it's great to see the club still thriving. But I took a load of my animals in 2022 to Essex Young Farmers for people to learn about. And I just did a talk where I brought all my animals out, went, oh, this is this, this is this. And, everyone came along and handled them. And then I got a call from one of the girls who was organising something for the Essex Young Farmers show. They were creating an education tent. And they asked me if I'd take the animals along for the education tent for people to learn and handle. And I thought, yeah, absolutely. I'd love the opportunity to do that. And we took all of the snakes and all the lizards we had, and we did a couple of talks throughout the day. And I think throughout we had about 300 young children come and like learn and handle our animals. And it was such a success. A lot of people said to me, you should really do this as a business. And that's where the spark sort of came from. So I then went out speaking to several different farmers I knew, asking, oh, have you got a unit I could rent or somewhere I could convert? And one of the farmers I know, he turned around to me and went, oh, absolutely. I've got a unit at my farmyard you can use. So we were able to convert that unit into what is Walking with Reptiles. And I'm so pleased with how it's all coming together. We've just got our animal activities license. So as long as I can get everything, the last few things checked off the list, we should be opening up hopefully for the beginning of March, which will be fantastic. So the idea is people can go on a website, book to come, and then they'll be able to get a hands-on handling experience with all sorts of different species of snake and lizard. And that's really what I want to encourage, is so people can get these hands-on experiences and these incredible animals. That's what I really want, because I feel like, going back to what I was saying when I was scared of snakes, through getting hands-on experience and learning about this animal up close helped me get over my fear of snakes. And now I think I've got close to 12 of them at the reptile unit at the moment. There's quite a few of them, but we rescue animals as well. So there's always different animals coming in, and we've still got some animals at home that we can't have them at the unit because they're for one reason or another. But yeah, it's great just being able to take these animals for people to learn about and handle. And you see it in like people's faces. We've got a large boa constrictor called Ruby. She's about 6 foot long, and she's sort of roughly like this in diameter.
That's like 10 centimeters?
Probably
12,
yeah,
maybe?
yeah. But she's a big girl. We don't know how much she weighs. We tried weighing her, and every time we do, she successfully tips the tub over. So we haven't had that much success in that part yet. But Ruby is the most calm animal I could ever. When we had her at the Essex Young Farmers show, like I say, she had about 300 people all coming and learning about animals, and we had her sat out on the ground because she's so large. We don't like her being up because she can't support herself. So we had her on the ground, and we had kids coming and sitting next to her and stroking her along her body. So they're getting the opportunity to feel the animal up close and, understand that snakes aren't slimy. They're quite smooth and really soft animals. It's like, I always describe it as a bag of sand. It's the best way I can describe a snake, is it's like picking up a tube of sand. That's the best way I can describe them. So that was such a great thing to do. And Ruby was an absolute gem. But people come along and they see her and they go, wow, like this snake's incredible. And they see how friendly and calm she is, and they realize, oh, snakes aren't that bad at all. And that's one of the great things I love about doing what we are doing at Walking with Reptiles.
So earlier we went into detail about what materials you think that people should use, and it's all depending on the animal, etc. Is there any materials you would recommend for people not to use, either for safety or because it breaks down in humidity?
So one of the things that when we were building the enclosures for the reptile unit, so all of the enclosures I've built them out of plyboard, and then what we've done is we've painted that over with a black paint that was safe for the animals to interact with, and also we've then sealed it all up. So that's protecting the wood. But with some materials I wouldn't recommend for that. One of them would be chipboard. So um, for several reasons, because of chipboard, if it gets high humidity, it will start to rot and give way. Then you'll get pieces of wood peeling off, which can then cause problems, because if an animal tries to claw at that or ingest it could cause all sorts of issues. So that's one of the main materials. So if you're building like wooden vivariums, I always recommend plywood. But some people have also got to the point where they're building plywood and then coating it with plastic on the inside. So PVC plastic only needs to be sort of 2-3 mil thick, but it still offers a nice surface that the animals can't injure themselves on or can't get caught on. But at the same time, you can use it to sort of attach different materials to. You can really build a safe, beautiful environment for your animal to be kept in.
So if designers were putting something into an interior, really you just want like a shell of maybe glass, and then the rest of it we'd probably call you and go help.
Absolutely.
Is that what you'd recommend?
Yeah, I mean glass vivariums and aquariums are great to be converted. There's a company called Exoterra. They do these really nice glass vivariums, so especially for keeping things like geckos and stuff like that, if they're an arboreal species, because they're very high, but because they're glass, you can see all the way around them. So what a lot of people will do is they'll use different materials to build up the back. So something that I've used in previous enclosures is I've used different bits of foam. You use that to build out the enclosure, and you can carve it to the shape that you want. You would then can cover that with silicone, and then once it's covered with silicone, you can mix up a substrate in a bucket. So you can use bark, soil, moss, and then you can stick that to that foam, and that will basically hold the shape that you want, but it will also create this wonderful background that you can see. So that's another thing you can do for vivariums as well. And that's one of the enclosures we're actually going to be building at the reptile facility. I want to do a bioactive vivarium for dart frogs, so people can see poison dart frogs up close, not to handle, because we might lose a frog if we do that, because they're so tiny that if they jump you can't catch them. But to have an enclosure that we build where people can see an up-close rainforest enclosure for poison dart frogs. That's something I'm really looking forward to building at the reptile facility. So that's going to be coming up in the next couple of months. But we've got a few things to do before we get to that point.
So if someone wanted to build like an Amazon rainforest tank in a room, what would be your advice in terms of how to go about doing that?
First things first, I would look at what's the animal you're going to keep. So if we'll go for poison dart frogs, for example. You would look at, okay, this is the species I'm going to keep. How many do I want to keep in this enclosure? So then you can get an idea for the size of the enclosure you need. Then you need to look at, okay, what temperature and what humidity do they need to be at? So you can then go, okay, I know I need to keep them at a high humidity level, and then they need to be kept at this temperature. Then you can start to build the enclosure around that. It gives you a guide on what plants you can use. It gives you a guide on how you can set up different aspects. So if you wanted to have a water feature included in there, which is something I love to do personally, just because I think it looks fantastic. It can be fiddly, but it looks fantastic. So you would start off by setting up your drainage layer, which would be a case of normally about sort of 3 inches of, it's called bio balls, which basically they support the substrate in the enclosure, but it still allows for the water to get in. What you can then do is you can get just like a standard water bottle and cut it in half and place that in the bio balls, poke a load of holes in it. And then when the water level starts to get too high, you can then stick a little hose in and just basically siphon the water out so that you're never going to drown your plants. Once you've got your drainage layer set up, you then want to use something like a bit of terrarium or a soft fabric that you can then use to separate the drainage layer from your substrate. Then you'd mix up your substrate using a soil, using bark, using moss, all sorts of different things, mixing that up in a bucket to the consistency and ratio you would want. placing that into the enclosure. And then you can also look at, okay, where do I want to have branches? Where do I want to put plants? And then you can look at things from there. So once the substrate's in, then I would look at, okay, where do I want to put all my branches? Where do I want to do all of, if I want to include rocks, where do I want to put all my rocks? Place them around the enclosure, make sure they're secure, because the last thing you want is them moving and the animal. Exactly. I mean, even with aquariums, people have put rocks in aquariums and the fish have got caught under the rocks. So you always have to make sure that they're secure so no animals get injured. But yeah, that's something that I've always thought was. So let me start that again. Sorry. That's probably one of the most important things that I would consider in making sure that anything that's going to have a bit of weight to it is secure, so it's not going to move and hurt the animal. Once that's done, then you can look at your plants. So if we're going down the route of poison dart frogs, they love a plant called bromeliads. They particularly love them because they actually will lay their eggs and grow their tadpoles in them. So there's a fantastic David Attenborough documentary where they document them doing it. So it's brilliant to see. So yeah, bromeliads are great because you'll often see them hiding in them, and you can see this little head popping out under the leaves and things like that. You can also use a plant called pothos, which is a great wall climber. It's really low maintenance and easy to look after, so that can grow up the walls and create all sort of this vine effect. And you can also look at different things like mosses as well. So Java moss is a great example. And especially with keeping dart frogs, they don't like sitting on plain substrate. They like to sit on things like moss and things like that. So you can have a carpet of moss on the bottom of the enclosure. That would look fantastic. So once you sort of got your plants set up, then the main thing will be just setting up the lighting for the enclosure, not only to bring the life to the enclosure so people can see quite clearly what's in there, but also so the plants have got a great source of light for them to grow from. So that's sort of the process you would go through. But again, depending on the animal, there might be slightly different factors to take into account. But that's sort of
literally got in my head this like beautiful waterfall. Like as soon as you said water feature, I'm going, right, waterfall. And like, yeah, I think the best thing, well, for me, my approach to that would probably be, look, I want it to look a little bit something like this, and then get your advice, because it sounds like it's so complex and everything is surrounding each animal individually that I think it would be really dangerous to kind of go off on the tangent unless you know what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can. Some people would say
you research, if not.
Yeah, absolutely. But some people, if they've got a DIY background, I'd say they'd be quite capable of doing it. But if it's one of those things, there are people that do go around building custom vivariums and things like that.
But you have to do, if you're going to do it yourself, I think, do your research and make sure you really know what you're talking about in terms of the animal and what kind of environment that animal needs to be in.
What plants actually thrive in warm, humid habitats?
So sort of similar to what I was describing previously. You generally find if you go to most exotic reptile stores, they will have a very large selection. Swallow Aquatics, where I used to work, when I worked there, we had such a massive selection of exotic plants you could choose from for your enclosures. But some of the safe ones that I would always recommend are pothos, because it's easy to look after and it grows. And the great thing about it is, if it gets to a point where it's a bit too big, you can cut it back and you can take that exact same bit of plant you've cut off and you can plant it elsewhere and it will grow elsewhere in the enclosure. So pothos is such a great plant, and also it creates that fantastic vine effect up the enclosure as well. And also bromeliads. Bromeliads, obviously, they do require water to go into the center of the plant, but they look fantastic, and they're great for animals to hide in. So, I mean, another animal that I think does very well in bioactive enclosures is day geckos, and they like bromeliads because they can hide under the leaves as well. So there's all sorts of different things like that, and they come in so many different species and different sizes and different shapes. I mean, I'm no good with my Latin names with plants, but if you somewhere like, for example, going into Swallow Aquatics, you could look at the selection that they have, and you could go, wow, like all these different colors, we could put them high up in the enclosure, we can put them low down in the enclosure, and not only will it create something visually amazing to look at, but you'll create all these different places for the animals to hide and feel secure as well.
So are there any plants that are toxic?
There's quite a few. There are some that I would say, generally, if you're going into somewhere that is a reptile specialist store, all the plants you'll be able to purchase there are going to be safe. But I wouldn't use anything from outside, because don't know where it's been, you don't know what's on it. And even going into desert enclosures, you don't want anything like cacti because they have got the spikes on them, and that can seriously injure the animal if they do go about touching it in the wrong way. Animals are always inquisitive. They're always going to investigate everything. So you always have to keep that in mind, that there's going to be nothing sharp and nothing poisonous on it. So they're sort of the main things I'd look at. But generally, if you're going into a reptile store to buy your plants, the plants that will all be available for selection will be safe to use.
How do you keep the plants alive when the reptiles are kind of climbing all over them?
So this depends, coming back to what animal you're keeping. So this is one of the issues I have with snakes. I have a beautiful snake called Lola, who is a Brazilian rainbow boa. Beautiful animal, stroppy attitude. We have her at the facility, and I would love for people to handle her and get to learn about her, but she's so, I wouldn't say aggressive, more defensive. She doesn't like people coming in her space. So unfortunately, we probably won't be using her for people to handle, but they can look at her through the glass of the enclosure. That'd be absolutely fine.
It sounds just like me. I don't want people in my space.
Get out of my face.
But with Brazilian rainbow boas in specific, they like to burrow in their substrate. So you could go through all this effort planting all these beautiful plants and setting them up in the enclosure, and they will literally tunnel through all the substrate and dig all the plants up. So with snakes, I generally use fake plants, because if they crush them or anything, that you haven't spent all this money on these live plants for them to get killed. But that's sort of the main thing. But if you're using them with geckos or frogs, any sort of tropical animal, water dragons, frilled dragons, anything like that, they generally will tend to leave them alone and won't actually damage them. Obviously, if you secure the plants in place, which can be done using various different methods, generally they'll be absolutely fine. But yeah, snakes I'd probably say are the worst ones for it. So like I say, I always use fake plants in my snake enclosures, just because otherwise, I mean, the amount of money I've spent on live plants trying to set up these beautiful snake enclosures, it doesn't last.
So for homeowners who want a jungle feel indoors without the reptiles, what's your advice on the way that they should go about that?
So I'd look at the area you're looking to fill. Then you can look at sort of say, okay, how big of an area can we utilize? That especially with old aquariums, I know people that have converted old aquariums and put them into walls and just filled them with live plants. So that's always one thing you can do. But you want to look at the lighting. You want to look at how you're going to manage the moisture, because with humidity, the glass will fog up. So that's always something you have to think about as well, because you don't want to spend all this money on this beautiful planted area and then
it's all foggy.
Exactly, because no one wants that. So that's another thing. Moisture management's one of them things you have to take into consideration. You also want to look at what sort of stones or anything along them lines. So if you wanted to use like purple slate, for example, because it has a very diverse coloration to it, but it also has a really nice texture to look at as well. And then also, coming back to what I was saying about water features, if you wanted to have a water feature in there, so you have something really visual to look at as well. These are the things you have to take into consideration. There's a brilliant company called Arcadia that do some fantastic lights for their enclosures. One of them, I'll have to double check the name of it, but I believe it's called the Jungle Dawn light, and it's a really, really bright LED bulb that lights up the enclosure, and it really is great for the plants because they grow under them so fantastically. So they're the things I would always take into consideration. Get a rough sort of idea of what you would like to look at and see in there, and then you can go about constructing it. The nice thing about living vivariums as well is when you first put them together, they're always going to, be a bit small, a bit timid, but as the plants grow, they'll come to life. So it's similar to when we go with landscaping. When we plant our plants, they might be very small at the beginning, but as they grow and they create these, for example, hydrangeas are one of my favorite plants to have in a garden. When they're small, they don't look too fantastic, but as they grow grow into this beautiful bright plant that just looks absolutely amazing, is really eye-catching. And I'd say it's the same with the plants that you can use in the vivariums, particularly with the bromeliads. There are some bromeliads that will grow really large, and some of them will flower and have some really nice flowers on them. So, that's some different things that I would take into consideration with the enclosure, or I say enclosure, with sort of the environment that you want to create. But also, I mean, you can use mosses to carpet the ground as well. So if you don't want to see any like brown substrate or anything like that, you can look at, okay, we can grow moss all across this and create a beautiful carpet of moss.
I don't know though. Brown is the Pantone colour of the year last year, isn't it? It's mocha mousse.
I love brown.
So brown is back.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Brown is back.
Like I say, there's so many different things that you could do. And the great thing about it as well is with some plants, you can take a little cut of them, plant them elsewhere in the enclosure and let them grow.
What about if you didn't have an enclosure?
I mean, you can have living plants in your like in your kitchen or anything like that. Obviously, I'd always recommend keeping them in the window so they do get bright light, but as long as they're well watered and things like that. People do keep bromeliads. My nan, bless her heart, used to have a bromeliad in her kitchen.
What's a bromeliad look like?
I don't know if I can show you quickly.
Can you describe it?
The best way to describe it is a little reservoir in the middle, with some water in it, and then the leaves come out like almost like a little arch, if that
So
makes
they like train down,
Yeah.
Like a
go to the
sea.
floor.
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of like goes like that, and they have this little reservoir of water in the middle, and then depending on the species, you do get a flower that grows in the center of them as well.
Oh, that's
It's
really,
really
cool.
cool.
So what's the biggest mistake people make when trying to create a indoor rainforest style?
I'd say the main thing is rushing it. And I can say this from my own experience. When I first attempted to do it, I rushed it and I didn't quite do it correctly. But that was me being impatient more than anything else, because I was so keen to get the animals in the enclosure and set up this amazing environment. I was kind of like, oh, I must do this and I must do that. And you end up cutting corners and you make mistakes. And then 6 months down the road, you then have to go back and redo it all over again. So I'd say you don't want to be rushing into it. You want to carefully plan out what you're looking to get. Carefully plan out, what materials, what plants you would like to use in the enclosure. And then you can sort of progress it from there. I mean, another mistake that I made when I first coated the back of an enclosure is you're best to do several coats. But me being me at the time, being very arrogant and thinking, oh, yeah, I know everything, I just used one coat of substrate. And then what happened is, as the animals used that part of the background as like a little trail to move up and down, the substrate wore away. So over time, you didn't have this lovely wall of substrate. You just had the foam you could see through the back. So things like that. I would always say, take your time, don't rush it, and
Do it properly.
Yeah, do it properly. Because otherwise, you're just going to be coming back to take it all apart and redo it all again. So yeah, that would be the main thing.
Amazing. So quick fire round. No thinking aloud. Favorite reptile?
Saltwater crocodiles.
Most misunderstood species?
Rather than a species, I'm just going to say like a whole genre, which I'd say is snakes. I think snakes are very misunderstood, and there's a lot about them that people can learn.
I'm terrified.
Oh,
I don't want one near me.
One plant everyone should try in a terrarium.
I would always say pothos for that, because it's easy to grow. It looks fantastic, and it also, like I say, the vines grow and it gives off that beautiful jungle effect. So I always say that's a good one to go for, and it's not too difficult to maintain either.
Worst reptile myth?
Oh, how long have you got? Because I could go on about this one for a while. So
you got about a minute.
Okay,
for that one.
right. So a couple of years ago, it's probably a long time ago, about 10 years ago, there's this TV documentary came out about a woman who had a pet snake. And she used to sleep in her bed with this pet, right, in her bed with this pet snake. And several people have heard me go on this rant before. The snake stopped feeding, and she took the animal to the vet to be like, my snake's not feeding, what's wrong with it? And the vet asked questions and said, oh, the animal is sizing you up to eat you. Right, I want to say this very clearly. This is absolute bullshit. Okay.
Oh, that isn't true.
No, that's rubbish.
Oh my God, because that made my theory even worse.
No. So if you think about it, in the wild, if a snake came up to, I'm going to use a rabbit as an example. If a snake came up to a rabbit and laid next to it, the rabbit is going to go running that way. It would never, ever, ever be able to get close to its prey. Snakes are ambush predators, and they do not lay next to their food to see if they can eat it or not. There's occasions where I've actually had some snakes where they've tried to eat a prey item and they've realized it's too big for them, and they'll just leave it be because they can't eat it. So yeah, that's probably the biggest myth I've ever heard, is that snakes will lay next to their food to eat it. And if anyone ever tries to convince you of that, send them my way and I'll quite happily explain to them that's not true at all. So yeah, that's probably the biggest myth.
Do you know what? Something that just reminded me of that is, if I have to think about really quickly a misunderstood species, but it's not a reptile, it's sharks.
Yeah,
they are the most misunderstood species. And a fact about that is the person who created the movies Jaws regretted it, because there was this whole misconception about them and it made everyone scared of them, when they're actually completely fine. I mean, when I swam with sharks, one came up to me because it was interested. If it just comes too close, you just pat it on the nose and it goes away. Like, they're not going to bloody eat you. But
yeah, they're more scared of us, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the case with a lot of animals. A lot of animals, they defend themselves. And
they think it's like hammerheads.
Yeah.
They automatically defend themselves.
Dream project
would be to open Walking with Reptiles as a zoo. So to basically, I mean, obviously we're in our early stages at the moment, but my long-term plan for Walking with Reptiles is to build us into a reptile-specific zoo where people can come and they can learn about reptiles, they can get hands-on with reptiles, but also so we can potentially get involved in breeding projects for endangered reptiles and help them in the wild as well. So that would be my dream project. And being able to build all of the enclosures and design it all, that, I'm like a kid at heart. I think, we could do this and we could do that. There's all these different things you could do. So that's what really excites me. And that's what I'd love to build Walking with Reptiles into. But that's going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort and a lot of money. But I'm sure I can do it one day.
You will. And when it does, you just got to let us know.
Yes, everyone. Yeah, let us. We'll share it as well.
Fantastic.
Just shout about it.
Yeah. So I'm excited to get Walking with Reptiles open for people to come and handle the animals to start with. Once we're open, I open it to everyone.
Where exactly is it?
So we're located in Haybridge, which is near to Maldon.
Essex.
Yeah, Essex. Probably should have mentioned
that.
that.
Just in case anyone's listening from somewhere else in the UK.
Yeah. But we're at a farm called Chigborough Farm, and there's quite a famous calf next to us called the Black Pig Calf. So even if you come down, to meet the animals, you can go into the calf next door and you'll be able to, get some food and drink and stuff like that as well. The main thing is you can go to our website, walkingwithreptiles.com, and you can book on a slot to come to our facility. We'll do a 90-minute handling session. You'll be able to get hands-on with all sorts of different species of snake and lizard, and you'll be able to learn about them at the same time as well, get photos and, just have a good time and enjoy it. And we've got so many different species that people can meet. We've got Ruby, our 6-foot boa constrictor. We've got Lizzie, our frilled dragon, George, our bearded dragon. We've got several different snakes. A fantastic corn snake called Milkshake, my friend Phoebe named, which is one of the best names ever. And we've got probably everyone's favourite Speedy, our panther chameleon. And he gets the name Speedy not because he's fast, but because he's got a go faster stripe down the side of his body. So we've got all sorts of different animals people can come and learn and handle and get hands-on experience with.
Oh my God, my son is going to love this. So's your brother.
No, it's mainly just me. I've got to come, really.
We'll all go. We'll all go. So I just want to say thank you to our sponsor today, which is Harp Design, interior designers and project managers based in Essex and London. Evan, thank you so much. This has been fascinating and genuinely useful for designers and reptile lovers alike.
I've learned so much, and now I want a rainforest in my bathroom.
Absolutely. I think we're going to have to do a rainforest in the hotel room of the future, but just without the tank.
Yeah.
We're doing the hotel room of the future. Which is at the XL at the end of February 2026. It's 2026 already, geez. So if you want to come and have a look at that, or you want to have a look online, it's all over our website of what the hotel room of the future looks like. Please like, subscribe and follow. We're on all the socials, including Instagram, TikTok, Facebook and YouTube. And if you'd like to see the episode, you can watch it on YouTube as well. Thank you very much for listening today.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.